that's where it started, the bullying. Ooh. I actually disconnected myself from the trans community for quite a while there. Welcome to the Trans Boss podcast, home of the Trans Boss movement, the place where empowered trans people come to discover what it takes to become the best versions of themselves. I am your host, Jasmine Vine, a Transfem trans empowerment specialist and the CEO of Javine, and I'm here to guide you on this empowering journey. In each episode, we'll dive deep into topics that matter to us trans people, like navigating through societal challenges, as well as building resilience and embracing an empowering mindset. We'll explore it all. We'll also bring on some incredible guests who are making a positive impact in the trans community. The Trans Boss podcast is your go-to resource for empowerment, hope, wisdom, and epic stories from empowered trans bosses across the globe. It's time to kick life's ass and create an empowered, authentic you. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Trans Boss podcast. So I want to let you in on my story and why I do what I do, why I'm so obsessed with, empowerment and self-development and all these things. So growing up was tough for me, as it is for many people. But when I was younger, my family were all, none of them had a job. None of them ever had a job as far as I've been alive. The closest to it would probably be a drug dealer. And, my life was filled with quite a bit of drug abuse and domestic violence. I moved schools probably about 6 times as a kid, and, growing up I didn't have a lot of friends, partly due to that. I didn't have time to actually make connections. And my mum, she was in and out of the psych ward all through my life. I probably remember her being there for maybe like 5 of my birthdays. But other than that, every birthday, Christmas, Easter, anything where there was obligation for her to actually, give a gift or something like that, it would be enough stress for her that she would be in the psych ward. And that happened all the way up until she passed away, honestly. It was a little bit better in the last few years. But, it still wasn't great. Instead of going to the psych ward twice a year, it was maybe, once a year or once every year and a half for the last couple of years-ish. So that was really tricky. And my dad, although he was really abusive and very much a drug addict, he made me feel safe in a way. He made me feel like there was a level of safety. I knew that wherever he would go, I would go, and I would be okay, and he would protect me, kind of thing. Unfortunately, a lot of the time he was who I needed protection from, thankfully not in a physical sense, but that more so, what he exposed me to. And domestic violence wise, a lot of that unfortunately was what I had witnessed because of him. That's really affected me in my life, abso-freaking-lutely. And when I was 11, he passed away. And all of a sudden, I went from living at my nan's house with him to living at my mum's house. My dad passed away, and literally within the week, my nan had the car packed and shipped me off to my mum's. And my mum was absolutely distraught that he had passed away. And obviously stress caused a manic episode. She was very, unwell with bipolar. And that's some of my, early life experiences and some of the things earliest that I remember sitting in the house alone with my mum while she's horribly manic, going to school, being bullied a shit ton because of how feminine I was, and then coming home and just all sorts of, like my mum having the TV on, Greek news, and mind you, we don't speak Greek, and she's just looking at the TV, speaking absolute gibberish, gosh, blah, blah, like actual gibberish, and screaming at me to listen to the sounds of our people. That was definitely really hard for me. And a lot of those experiences, led to me feeling suicidal from age 7. I remember it quite clearly the first time that I remember not wanting to be here and trying to not be, essentially. And yeah, all of that while getting bullied relentlessly, and then moving schools so many times and being bullied consistently at all of those schools. It was not a fun time. And I know that many people can probably relate. A lot of trans people get that type of bullying as young kids, and often earlier than we even know what to do with. I remember the first time I was called the F word, I was literally in kindergarten. I would have been 5 years old, and we were painting, and I had painted a little flower in a pot, and I made the petals pink and everything, and I was just like, that was totally fine to me. I was like, yeah, that's what I know how to paint. I'm going to do that. And all the other boys in the room were painting like cars and stuff, and I remember one of them turning around and looking at what I'd painted and calling me the F word. That's where it started, the bullying. Ooh. But it didn't slow down from there, unfortunately. It kept pretty consistent throughout school years up until dropping out at age 17. And, when I was coming to terms with being trans about 2012, there wasn't a lot of positive representation out there or online. And what representation there was porn, or very limited. It was very limited. And I found some Facebook groups and stuff where there were trans people hanging out in there and all of that, but YouTube as well was a good source of it. I found a lot of people on YouTube that I related to, and people spoke about all of the issues going on and all of the problems and challenges associated with being a trans person. And I practically never saw any positive or happy stories. And gender euphoria wasn't even a term back then. It was not a thing. And I would have been 14, as a 14-year-old trans person at that stage, having already dealt with, depression for 7 years, and, here I am scrolling online, and the only things that I'm seeing are, people with all of these horrible experiences, people who saying that the trans experience was misery and they wish they were never born and all of this kind of stuff. And because that's all I ever saw. So there are, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of unique and painful struggles that come along with being a trans person. But it was pretty disheartening to see that so strongly, and just to see all of the struggle and all of the anguish that people were experiencing. And, even though there are so many of those experiences and people that are miserable, that are feeling victimized or struggling, with their mental health, or, in porn or doing sex work, that's a reality, it's happening. But as an asexual person, that was really freaking crappy to see. So, I basically ended up just assimilating, and I decided that I was broken, that I wasn't, the world just wasn't made for me, and I wasn't meant to be happy. I was just dealt a bad hand of cards, all of that type of stuff. And after a while, it actually just got too much, and my mental health was really freaking bad, and I reached a pretty low when I was 17. I was taken to the psych ward with a manic episode and, diagnosed with bipolar type 1. same as my mum. Thanks, mum, for those genetics. That's great. And, you know, I was numbing myself with weed from the moment I woke up to the moment I would go to sleep. And it just all became too much for me. And I actually disconnected myself from the trans community for quite a while there. I stopped posting online. I stopped telling anyone that I was trans. I tried my hardest to, you know, pass or become suspected, as I prefer to call it. And I went into hiding for about 3 years. And, you know, here's the thing. There's so much, well, there was and there is so much negativity in the trans community. But I saw my life purpose as, you know, to help people. And that's always been a thing for me. I remember some of my earliest memories being in the counsellor's office and crying my eyes out saying, I don't want to be here, but I feel like I need to be here because I feel like I need to share my story and I need to help other trans people not feel so alone and like all of that kind of stuff. That was really ingrained in me from a young age. And at that point, I'd made a few YouTube videos and I had some really good, you know, feedback on that. People were saying, my gosh, Jasmine, you've helped me come out to my family or to accept myself, or you've helped me realize I was trans and all of this kind of stuff. And I realized, you know, being open and being visible as a trans person was actually helping a lot of people. And that's what really held me on in those really, really dark times, was knowing that I had the ability to affect positive change in the world. Something clicked in me where I realized I had 3 options. You know, I could dive headfirst into all the negativity and just accept that my mental health, you know, was just going to be awful. I was just going to be in and out of the psych ward like my mom and smoking weed all my life and not having a job, all of that. You know, I could accept that. I could hide away. I could continue to just hide my identity forever and never really make any true friends because I wasn't being my authentic self and, you know, allowing myself to truly connect with people. Or I could create a space where trans people could see a different way. I could actually show them that the trans experience doesn't have to be all misery and heartache. It doesn't have to be all that. And yes, every human is going to have some of that. Like, that's just perks of being a human. Congratulations. And I also wanted to show people, you know, or provide a place where euphoria is emphasized over dysphoria, or hope is emphasized over not hope, disempowerment, what's the word? Over a lack of hope, because there's plenty of people out there that are going to really make you believe that there is a lack of hope. And it is really easy to fall into that. I know, because I fell into it for years. But there is hope, and there always is. And we just need to shine a torch on it. Sometimes it's a matter of where is the torch actually pointing? Because where we focus is where our energy is going to flow. So important to understand that. But essentially, I wanted to build a platform or to build a place where we lift trans people up, we lift each other up, and give strategies for building a more positive mind space, a more mentally healthy mind space. And, you know, when I looked at those 3 options, I'm sure you can guess which one I picked, right? Like, I decided to actually dive headfirst into my own healing journey and my own coaching, development, training, all of that type of stuff. And I decided I wasn't going to be a statistic. I'm not going to be another trans person that's homeless, on drugs, severely mentally unhealthy, and just struggling to survive. I'm not going to be that person. And I'm going to do whatever the hell I can to make sure that that is not me, that that doesn't happen. And not only is it not me, that I can help other people help them for it to not be them, because I've seen where that leads. That's my family. And one of the biggest motivations in my life is honestly to not be anything like my family. That's a massive thing. And I find people either dive into, oh, this is the example I was shown and this is all I've ever known, so I'm going to do that and just continue that pattern. Or they go, whoa, I've seen where that leads. I know that's not what I want. So what's the opposite of that? What could I actually do instead that's going to get me to a life that I enjoy and that I can be myself and love myself and actually make a positive impact for myself and for other people in the world? Like, that is an option that people have. It's the same with bullying. Some people are bullied all their life and they choose to bully other people. Some people are bullied all their life and they choose to turn that around and go, you know what? No one else. I'm going to make sure that these people are okay and they are happy and I'm going to support them, right? So there's different motivations there, and that's definitely a huge motivation for me, is to not be like that. And I want to help you not be like that either, whatever your experience is, because ultimately I want to live a life that I'm happy with. I want to live a life that I'm proud of, one where I feel like I've affected positive change in the world. And I know you probably want that too. You're not going to be listening to this if that's not the case. So what can you do to actually get there? And maybe the first step is listening to what we're going to talk about on these podcast episodes. But yeah, anyway, that's a bit of a tangent. But essentially, you know, earlier in my life, I was very much a fighter, and I was stuck in this cycle of doom scrolling and looking at all the horrible negative things happening in the world. And I just want to make it very clear, there's a difference between doing that and staying informed. You can stay informed without constantly barraging yourself yourself with all of the negativity, the hate, and the crap in the world. You don't necessarily need to expose yourself to as much of that as you probably are. And that's what I was doing. I was looking at that. I was finding reasons to fight everywhere. Oh my goodness, look what this person said. Oh, look at this protest and this protest. I'm going to go do those, and I'm going to, you know, fight with this troll online for 3 days. Like that's not what Jasmine did. I'm going to fight with this troll online. I'm going to show them that being trans is natural and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of that actually stemmed from my own insecurities, my own lack of belief in myself, and I was exhausted. I was actively making my mental health worse by doing that, because what you focus on grows, and I was making it worse with all of the actions that I took, and that had to freaking change. What I ended up realizing is that if I'm incapacitated, if I'm so low and my cup is so freaking empty, I can't help anyone. I'm not going to be able to help any people if I'm burnt out and exhausted. There's no freaking way I can make a positive difference in other people's lives if I'm like in the fetal position, like looking at my phone, being like, oh my gosh, look what J.K. Rowling said today. I'm going to blast this. Like, I can't help anyone that way. So there was a big shift there where I shifted my focus to creating rather than fighting. And that's not to say one's better than the other or anything like that. I think they're both absolutely necessary. You know, the fighters are essentially on the front line. They're showing people what needs to be, looked at. Whereas the creators, and I think there needs to be more of them, is, there's always some fighting to do. Always. You can always find something to fight about, or something to, fight for, a cause to get behind. Like, there's enough to fill every person's lifetime and every person who's to come's lifetime. So what there isn't enough of, though, is people that are creating. And, what I realize is that if I spend all of my space or all of my time in the fighting space, it doesn't actually leave me much time for anything else. And that's not to say it's a bad thing. Like, it's not, it just is. But I didn't want that, because You know, I wanted to actually dedicate my time to creating safe spaces, to creating spaces where trans people could have a bit of a break from all of the negativity, because there's plenty of negativity and crap out there, and there's lots to be angry about and there's lots to fight over. But where is the time for actually just living and for experiencing and being? I think that's very much missing. When are we celebrating our wins? When are we celebrating the positivity, the euphoria? When have we promoted positive mental health and really focused on that? Like, there needs to be more of that in the world. And that's what I'm hoping this podcast is going to help provide. And, you know, a lot of this actually started to happen in my Facebook and Discord groups, the Trans Boss Network. You know, I started sharing my story and my journey, you know, this after sort of coming back and going, you know what, I can't freaking help anyone from the shadows. So I'm going to have to be present and be visible as a trans person. And part of that was sharing my story and sharing my journey again and sharing how I got out of the mental health slump that I was in. You know, I started sharing how others could start to do that as well. And you know, my focus became entirely on, you know, empowering trans people to heal and to love their authentic selves. And it's more than that though. Like, yeah, that's a huge freaking part. But what the real thing is the impact. Because the more people, the more trans people that are out there that are feeling healed within themselves, that love themselves, that are proud of who they are, and that spread positivity in the world, not only is there more positivity going out there, but we affect other people. The way that we process, the way that we go through things in life actually affects the people that are closest to us. And I want to create that domino effect of mentally healthy, positive, trans role models and, you know, people out there to help foster more creators to go out there and lift more trans people up. I want to see that movement. I want to see people paving the way for trans people to actually love themselves and to be a positive example for people, and to not only be misery and heartache. But yeah, like that's essentially the vision that I see for this. And it's really exciting to me. And I want to see more of us dive into this and lift other people up and help other people realize that they can impact their mental health in a positive way and not have to suffer all of their lives. That is really freaking important to me. Hope is the biggest, most important freaking thing to me in this life, and that is what I want to put forward. Hope that you can become more mentally healthy. Hope that you can create a life that isn't just misery, and hope that you can actually enjoy your life. That is what I want to give, and that is what I think we need more of, and more people spreading. So just imagine, oh my goodness, imagine the beautiful ripple effect we could have on, you know, our children or even like our families. Oh my gosh, I'm getting into like this giddy kind of like, oh, imagine a world. But it's just so big. Like it is massive to me, and it's a movement. That's why it's the Trans Boss movement. It's a freaking movement. It takes a village. So we need to build up the village and then go out and help other villages and build up those villages so that they can help other villages. And then we'll just all eat rainbows and cake and all be happy and hug lots of cats and dogs and stuff, and it'll be great. And that all starts with helping people to get to a mentally healthy place on a personal level. It all starts with the person, because affecting you is affecting others. Just as you can see like a bunch of people laughing, like really like belly laughing, and that affects you and makes you want to freaking have a bit of a chuckle, the same thing can happen with positivity, mental healthiness, like where people jump on this hatred bandwagon and spread all of that hate. That spreads. We know that. We know that hate spreads and that it affects other people, but so does positivity. So what I want for this platform, for me, for anyone who listens to this or who wants to become a more mentally healthy trans person or even a cis person, like, I want you to focus here. Focus on you a little bit and get yourself to a place where you're feeling mentally healthy and you're able to actually create the space where you can help other people create space as well. Because that is what is going to have a truly big impact in this world. So there we have it. There's a little bit more about my story and why I'm doing this and all of that. I feel like there's a couple of tangents in there, but you know what? I'm just gonna post whatever I want to post, and if you enjoy it, then that's fantastic, and I hope that you stick around and like it. And if you don't, then, and if you don't like it, you could leave, and that's all. So I will leave it there, and again, thank you for joining this movement and for being here with me, and I really truly do hope that this becomes a beautiful place for you to hang out and to feel empowered and to feel loved and to feel hopeful and all of those beautiful, beautiful things, hugging cats and dogs and all of that stuff. So thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Trans Boss podcast. If you support the Trans Boss movement, it would help immensely if you could leave a review on your favorite podcasting app, follow us, and share your biggest takeaway from this episode on social media. Don't forget to tag me at jasmine.vine on Instagram because I would love to see it. Now get out there, do the things, and take the next step into that empowered life you deserve. See you next time.